What's up, guys, and welcome back to another video. I'm Bandit Barney, bringing you everything you need to know about Red Dead Online. And today we have found what percentage of Red Dead 2 online players are griefers. We went in and we ran a test to find how often do we get griefed. Not only that, but out of 10 players, how many are going to be griefers? And the way we tested this was by going into the 6 cities with butchers. So we got Saint Denis, Rhodes, Valentine, Blackwater, Strawberry, and Tumbleweed. And I went to the butcher, and then I would reload a free roam. That way I'm getting a new lobby, and the way Rockstar does lobbies is when you load into a lobby, Rockstar will put more players around you. Red Dead 2 Online will put more players around you. So I wanted to know, how often are we gonna get griefed? And it was important for me when I was running this test that when I started at the butcher, I would go out and I'd hunt down a carcass. It was something visibly large on the back of my horse, because I also wanted to figure out how often is someone gonna grief me if they see I have something versus me just rolling past them. I would go out, get the carcass, and then come back to the butcher. I took the same route every single time. And the reason for me taking the same route was because I didn't want to skew our data by running into people that I wanted to find out, hey, are they a griefer, or they're shooting, or they're fighting already. And I didn't want to skew the data by just going out and actively searching for griefers. The goal of this was to be, if you're doing your own thing and you're just going out hunting and you're going to the butcher doing your own thing, how many players are you passing, and out of how many of those players you're passing, how many of them are griefers? And this test took quite a while, but I think we found some interesting things. And one thing that I was expecting going into this test was, like, I think that I'm going to be getting griefed 50% of the time. Like, I think I'm going to be getting griefed a lot, right? That was my feeling going into it, because I just remember getting griefed when I'm playing the game often. When I try and make my trip to the butcher, it's like strategic, trying to avoid everyone on the way there. And this was the case. Let me just dive into some of these numbers. There's a lot of them, so I'm going to link down below a spreadsheet which kind of keeps track of all the data that we have that I put together here. And it'll help you guys look at something, as well as we'll put some of this stuff up on screen for you. Out of the 100 trips I made to the butcher, well, let me start with here. If I did get griefed in a lobby, I would immediately reset and try another lobby. The reason for this was because it would be too difficult for me to keep track of which player griefed me, because I didn't want to count one player griefing me 3 times as 3 griefers. I didn't want to do that, so I would instantly reload a lobby if I got griefed, so I didn't have to try and keep track of the names above players. It wouldn't make sense. We're not trying to see how often we can get griefed. We're trying to see how many players are griefers. So I passed by 139 players in my 100 trips to the butcher. Out of those 139 players, 30 of them were griefers. Now this comes down to about 22% of players in Red Dead 2 Online are griefers. And really, that doesn't seem like a whole lot, right? Like, it just doesn't seem what I was expecting. I was expecting much more than that. But it doesn't quite tell the whole story, right? That doesn't quite tell the whole story. It comes down to about 1 in 5 players being a griefer. But the test I did were quick. I only spent 3 to 5 minutes in a lobby, and more often than not, I didn't pass 5 players in a run. Let's throw up the Saint Denis chart right here. And this was one of the cities that actually surprised me the most, because I passed more players than any other city in Saint Denis, but I only got griefed 3 times. I started to think about that. Why did I think that was? Well, because there's so many different streets in Saint Denis. The city's so big. And often when I would load into the city, players were occupied by doing XP grinds. Saint Denis is known for this more than any other city, for being used as XP grinds. So the players that Rockstar would put me near were occupied with something else. And I think that kind of resulted in them not griefing as much, because they're already busy doing something else. Which was interesting, because Saint Denis was the biggest city. I was expecting to get griefed there more often than not. And just to note, I only counted players that I passed by, not by seeing them on the minimap, but by actively like going by them in game and me realizing like, all right, if this player wanted to grief me, he could easily grief me right now. So that's how I kept track of the players I went by. Sanity was really, really surprising to me. I thought I would be griefed more here, but let's jump into the more telling stat, which is what percentage of lobbies would I get griefed in? And in Insanity, it came down to only 18% of lobbies would I be griefed in. Now, obviously, the longer you spend in a lobby, the more people you pass by, the greater the chance is that you're going to be griefed. But Insanity, more so than any other area, the players that I passed weren't interested in griefing. It came down to only 10% of the players I passed Insanity wanted to grief or griefed me. We passed by 30, and only 3 of them were griefers. On the flip side, the city where I got griefed the most, and you guys probably guessed it, Blackwater. Blackwater is just not the place you want to be in this game. Blackwater sucks, man. You are probably going to get griefed in Blackwater. 41% of the lobbies I played in Blackwater, I was griefed. 41%. That's almost 50% of the time you go to Blackwater, you can expect to be griefed. Which is just, it's such a contrast from Saint Denis. I did not think there would be this big of a gap from Saint Denis to Blackwater. But 41% of the time that I was in Blackwater, I got griefed. Ultimately came down to 28% of the players in Blackwater would grief you. So that's over our 1 in 5 average. There are certain cities that the percentage of griefers is just higher. And one that was extremely surprising is Strawberry. Let's throw this one up there. You can guess that in Strawberry, I'm not passing by a lot of players. You're just not going to go by. There's not as many players that are in that city. So in a lobby, I would more often than not see either one or nobody. But players in Strawberry were more interested in griefing than almost anywhere else. No, actually more than anywhere else. 30% of the players in Strawberry were griefers. So I only passed by 10 of them, but 3 of them were griefers, which is interesting. I thought, why is it that Strawberry, people are going to grief more when you're in Strawberry? And my thought, let me know what you guys think in the comments below, is that Strawberry is kind of this area where you're in between different tasks. You're kind of in between doing something. You got a long ride south or east to really get into any other city, and you're kind of in this bored state of the game where, hey, let's have a little bit of action. I'm going to grief someone. And I think players are just more bored that are up by Strawberry than in other cities. And I think that's what resulted in me getting griefed more often by players there than anywhere else, which was really, really surprising. Overall, it's pretty average between these different cities, the percentage of players that are griefers. So Tumbleweed, we have 27% of players are griefers down there. In Blackwater, 28. Like we said, Strawberry, 30%. Rhodes was 23. One that surprised me was Valentine, because I honestly thought I'd been griefed quite often in Valentine before, and I honestly thought that I would be getting grief there like equivalent to Blackwater, but it just wasn't true. Only 19% of players in Valentine were griefers, which to break down the numbers, I passed by 26 players and 5 of them were griefers, but I did end up getting griefed in 29% of my lobbies. So the way this works is that when I'm in a city that has more people, I'm gonna go by more people, and the percentage of griefers could be lower then, because I'm passing by more people and not necessarily all of them are griefers, compared to like a Strawberry where there's less people. So I only got killed in 18% of my lobbies in Strawberry. Now I know it's a lot of numbers, guys, and I'm a really numbers person, so I don't always do the best of explaining this, but we're gonna put these charts in the description below, so you can just go down and look at them, because it is a lot of numbers and it's hard to keep track of these different things. But I'm gonna put it down below so you can see what we're talking about here. Strawberry, I only got killed in 18% of my lobbies. So it's fair to say that if you're going to Strawberry, you're probably not gonna get griefed. It's the lowest griefing city along with Saint Denis. But because there's fewer players there, the percentage of players that did grief me is increased. Only 10 players I passed by, 3 of them griefed me. The cities that were the hardest to get into were Rhodes, Blackwater, and Tumbleweed. Valentine was a close 4th there. So Rhodes, I got griefed 35% of my lobbies. Blackwater, 41%. Tumbleweed, 35%. And Valentine, 29%. So these are all 10+% above Saint Denis and Strawberry. It's just interesting to me, you know. I want to kind of, we went over a lot of the numbers now. I just want to kind of dive into, it's interesting because overall, we have the number that about 22% of players are griefers. I did round these percentages up just so that you guys know. 22% of players are griefers, which doesn't seem like a whole lot. In any game that's an open world game like this, with everybody being able to play with each other, it just doesn't sound like a toxic percentage. 20% isn't super toxic. The average player is not a griefer. That's the result of this test that we're finding. More players are not griefers, and significantly more players are not griefers. Out of 139 players, only 30 of them are griefers. That means 109 out of 139 players are nice players that are just going to leave you to do your own thing. 109. Nice. But it feels like griefing is such a toxic part of Red Dead 2 Online. Why is that? My opinion is that it feels that way because in this game, so many free roam activities are promoted, like hunting and fishing, and you need to take these fish or your kills, and you need to take them to the butcher to sell them. Well, if on your way to the butcher or while you're hunting, you pass more than 5 players, chances are that one of those guys is going to grief you. And that puts things into a little bit more perspective. Because in each of my lobby runs, I was only there for like 3 to 5 minutes. And actually in the lobby for 2 to 4, right? The other time was just loading screens. So if you're in a lobby for longer than 10 minutes and you're in a populated area, chances are you're gonna be griefed. Because after 5 players come past you, the next guy's probably gonna be a griefer. It was rare for me to get a run where I passed more than 5 players without getting griefed. If you look at the chart, more often than not, once I passed a 5th player, and it could be in a different lobby, but once I passed a 5th player, I got griefed. So when we think about it like that, it starts to sound a little bit worse, right? It starts to sound a little bit worse. And all of this is kind of just pointing to Rockstar, help us out. Help us out. Give us a punishment to these griefers. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I know an opinion that was going by previously, or that had been circulated around, was that griefers would either get jail time or they could be publicly hung. I'm not sure how that would work out, but I think we should at least be able to put bounties on griefers so that they can't do, you know, if you're going to go around just shooting people that are minding their own business, then at some point when you're trying to mind your own business, you should be getting shot at. That's my opinion. You know, we should have some consequence. We should have some consequence to these griefers. And right now there really isn't any. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know there's a lot of numbers involved in today's video. Like I said, I'm a super numbers person, so I can just get off on tangents when it comes to these. But we'll have it linked down below. Click on it. You guys can check it out as much as you want. To note for you guys, I marked when I got griefed with an X, and sometimes I got griefed multiple times in a run. All that means is that 2 separate players would start shooting me at the same time. One time I was in Tumbleweed and 3 players started shooting me at the same time. That's what that means. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for your support. Really, really appreciate the growth you guys are giving us on the channel. Glad to have you. Super appreciate it. Hope you have a great day and look forward to seeing you in a future video. Take care.